course to avoid association with those practicing false worship and immorally inclined persons, for these entrap one in sin and spoil useful habits. X 23, 33, NE 13, 25, 26, PS 26, 9-11, PR 1, 10-19, EC 7, 26, 1 Co 15, 33, 34. There are, of course, many things that can be done or not done, or that can be done one way or another, without any condemnation of sin. Compare 1 Co 7, 27, 28. God did not hem man in with multitudinous instructions governing minute details as to how things were to be done. Clearly, man was to use his intelligence, and he was also given ample latitude to display his individual personality and preferences. The law covenant contained many statutes. Yet even this did not rob men of their freedom of personal expression. Christianity, with its strong emphasis on love of God and neighbor as the guiding rule, similarly allows men the widest possible freedom that persons with righteously inclined hearts could desire. Compare Mount 22, 37-40. Row 8, 21. See freedom. Jehovah God of moral standards. Sin, 2. A name applying to a wilderness and a city. 1. A wilderness region to which the Israelites, approximately 1 month after their exodus from Egypt, transferred after leaving Elim, and a campsite by the Red Sea. After this wilderness, there were several more campsites, including Dophkah, Alush, and Rephidim, before they came to Sinai. X 16. 1. 17. 1. New 33. 9-15. It was in the wilderness of Sin that murmuring and complaints arose in the camp, because of the lack of meat. Here Jehovah caused a flock of quail to cover the camp, and here the Israelites ate manna for the first time. It was also at this point that the Sabbath law was put into effect. X 16. 2-30. The exact location of the wilderness of Sin is uncertain, though it is obviously along the border of the Sinai Peninsula. Geographers generally favor the sandy tract known as Debit Ramla, lying along the foot of the Sinai Plateau. This desert plain is also near the suggested site of Dophkah. 2. Sin was among the cities of Egypt due to feel the sword brought on that land by the hand of the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. As 30. 6, 10, 15, 16. It is called the fortress of Egypt. Some authorities today accept the identification Pelusium found in the Latin Vulgate. Pelusium was an ancient fortress city situated in a key defense position against invasion from the Asiatic continent. Its location is generally accepted to coincide with present-day Tel El Faram, a site about 32 kilometers 20 miles of Port Said on the Mediterranean Sea coast. Caravans or armies coming down the Philistine coast thus found this fortress guarding the entrance to Egypt. Assyrian king Ashurbanipal refers to it in his annals. Today Textoi acute Miritra Longo, Sinai 972 observed the phenomena on the mountaintop. In fact, they could withdraw and stand at a distance. Even from the camp itself the top of Mount Sinai was visible. X 19. 17, 18. 20. 18. 24. 17. Compare to 5. 30. Identification. The exact location of Mount Sinai, or Horeb, is uncertain. Tradition links it with a red granite ridge centrally situated in the southern part of the Sinai Peninsula between the two northern arms of the Red Sea. This ridge measures about 3 kilometers to me from NWHS and has two peaks, Ras Safer and Jebel Musa. The area in which this ridge lies is well watered by several streams. In front of the northern peak Ras Safer lies the plain of Araha, having an approximate length of 3 kilometers to me and extending about 1 kilometer 0.6 mi in width. Picture, Volume 1, p. 540. Based on his observations at the site in the 19th century, A.P. Stanley writes, that such a plain should exist at all in front of such a cliff is so remarkable a coincidence with the sacred narrative, as to furnish a strong internal argument, not merely of its identity with the scene, but of the scene itself having been described by an eyewitness. Commenting on the descent of Moses and Joshua from Mount Sinai, he states. Anyone coming down from one of the secluded basins behind the Ras Sefer, through the oblique gullies which flank it on the north and south, would hear the sounds borne through the silence from the plain, but would not see the plain itself till he emerged from the Wadi el-Dir or the Wadi Laya. And when he did so, he would be immediately under the precipitous cliff of Sefer. Stanley further observes that Moses throwing the dust of the golden calf into the torrent that was descending from the mountain to 9:21 would also fit this area, saying, this would be perfectly possible in the Wadi Rahab, into which issues the brook of the Wadi Laya, descending, it is true, from Mount St. Catherine, but still in sufficiently close connection with the Jebel Mawza to justify the expression, coming down out of the mount. Sinai and Palestine, 1885, pages 107-109. The traditional view is that Mount Sinai may be identified with the loftier southern peak Jebel Mawza, meaning Mountain of Moses. However, numerous scholars concur with Stanley's view that the northern peak, Ras Sefer, is more likely, there being no extensive plain in front of Jebel Mawza. Events. Near Mount Sinai, or Horeb, Jehovah's angel appeared to Moses in the burning thorn bush and commissioned him to lead the enslaved Israelites out of Egypt. Acts 3. 1-10. Acts 7. 30. Probably about a year later the liberated nation arrived at Mount Sinai. Acts 19. 2. Here Moses ascended the mountain, evidently to receive further instruction from Jehovah, since it had already been revealed to him at the burning thorn bush that on this mountain they would serve the true God. Acts 3. 12. 19. 3. Moses was then directed to tell the people that their strict obedience to Jehovah's word and covenant would result in their becoming a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Acts 19. 5, 6. The older men, as representatives of the entire nation, agreed to do this. Jehovah then instructed Moses to sanctify the people so that they might meet him on the third day thereafter. Bounds were set around the mountain, because anyone touching it, whether man or beast, was to die. Acts 19. 10-15. On the morning of the third day, thunders and lightnings began occurring, and a heavy cloud upon the mountain and a very loud sound of a horn. The people in the camp trembled. Moses then brought them from the camp to the base of the mountain to meet the true God. Mount Sinai rocked and smoked all over. Acts 19. 16-19. PS 68. 8. At God's invitation Moses went up the mountain and again was instructed to impress upon the people that they must not try to ascend. Even the priests, not the Levites, but apparently Israelite males who, o textoi acute muritra longo, singleness 973. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai he related Jehovah's words to the people, and they again expressed their willingness to be obedient. Thereafter he wrote down the words of God and early the next morning built an altar and erected 12 pillars at the foot of the mountain. Burnt sacrifices and communion sacrifices were offered, and with the blood of the sacrificial victims the law covenant was inaugurated. Acts 24. 3-8. Hab 9. 16-22. Having come into a covenant relationship with Jehovah, the Israelites, through their representatives, were able to draw near to Mount Sinai. Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and 70 of the older men of Israel went partway up the mountain and saw a magnificent vision of God's glory. Acts 24. 9-11. Afterward Moses, accompanied by Joshua, ascended the mountain, this time to receive further commands and the stone tablets containing the 10 words. Not until the 7th day, however, was Moses invited to enter the cloud. It seems that Joshua continued to wait for Moses on the mountain, at a point where he could neither see nor hear anything that occurred in the Israelite camp. Acts 24. 12-18. However, whether Joshua, like Moses, did not eat or drink for the entire 40-day period is not stated. As Moses and Joshua at the end of this period descended Mount Sinai they could hear the festive singing in the Israelite camp. From the foot of Mount Sinai, Moses caught sight of the golden calf and the festivities. Immediately he threw down the 2 stone tablets, shattering them at the foot of the mountain. Acts 32. 15-19. Hab 12. 18-21. Later, Moses was instructed to make 2 stone tablets like those he had shattered and again ascend Mount Sinai, in order to have the 10 words recorded thereon. Acts 34. 1-3. The 10. 1-4 Moses spent another 40 days on the mountain without eating or drinking. To make this possible, he doubtless received divine assistance. X34. 28. Apparently this is the same 40-day period as that mentioned at the 9. 18. Compare X34. 4, 5, 8. The 10. 10. From the time that the tabernacle, or tent of meeting, was erected and the cloud began to cover it, divine communication no longer came directly from Mount Sinai, but from the tent of meeting set up in its vicinity. X40. 34, 35. The 1. 1. 25. 1. New 1. 1. 9. 1. Centuries later the prophet Elijah traveled to Horeb, or Sinai, the mountain of the true God. 1K19. 8. 2. Sinai also designates the wilderness adjacent to the mountain by the same name. The 7. 38 The exact geographic limits of the wilderness of Sinai cannot be determined from the Bible record. It was apparently located near Ephadim. X19. 2. Compare X17. 1-6. It was to the wilderness of Sinai that Moses' father-in-law Jethro brought Moses' wife Zipporah and his 2 sons Gershom and Eliezer, for them to be reunited with Moses. X18. 1-7 Among other noteworthy events occurring in the wilderness of Sinai were Israel's succumbing to calf worship during Moses' absence. X32. 1-8 The execution of 3,000 men who undoubtedly had a major part in calf worship. X32. 26-28 Israel's outward expression of